Welcome. Let's talk about a controversy that's going on the social media about the word Hindu growth rate mentioned by Honorable Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji while addressing 12 years ruling celebrations yesterday. Honorable Prime Minister, while he was speaking about the previous regime of their opponent, that is Congress government, obviously, right? His opponent is the Congress government. Somewhere in 1970s, there was a word used by one of the economists in India, that time in 1970s, that is Hindu growth rate. So that word he was referring yesterday, the Honorable Prime Minister, he said, the economic slowdown of growth rate, the economic growth rate slowdown, they blamed Hindu community. That's what exactly he tried to say. Who the previous government, previous means their opponents, Congress people, Narendra Modi ji released that the Congress people used a word called Hindu growth rate to blame Hindu community the reason for economic growth rate slowdown. That is exactly try to make it a political issue yesterday, the Honorable Prime Minister. I think one of the journalists, he asked Jairam Ramesh just 1 hour or 2 hours ago. He asked Jairam Ramesh that Honorable Prime Minister made this statement that you people used Hindu growth rate while referring to economic growth rate slowdown. Jairam Ramesh said, why do you want me to respond to an illiterate's comment? He referring to the Honorable Prime Minister, he said, Jairam Ramesh, illiterate. So now it became another issue, second issue. The first issue was Hindu growth rate, and the second issue was that Jairam Ramesh calling Honorable Prime Minister as illiterate. First issue, let's talk about what is Hindu growth rate. Why this Hindu growth rate word became controversial. Why Honorable Prime Minister, while addressing 12-year celebration, picked up a single word which was used 50 years ago. 50 years ago, the word was used by one of the economists. He is not a politician, he is not congressman, he is not a minister, he is not a governor. That time he was not even prime minister. Prime minister, he was not even president of India. That person who used the word economic growth, he was not economist. Sorry, he was not a politician, he was not member of Congress, he was not member of any legislative party, or he was not minister nor any authority. He was just one of the economists working with one of the universities. He used a word called Hindu growth rate, referring to economic growth rate slowdown. So that was the word. Now picked up by the Honorable Prime Minister, blaming that their opponents, that is in a block. Why that person, Rajesh, I think what's his name, Rajesh Krishna, let me see his name. There's a person, Raj Krishna, one of the economists, Raj Krishna, he used a word called Hindu growth rate, referring to economic growth rate slowdown. Because why he used that time, because he was referring to the pattern of the stagnant or status quo of the religious cultural values. Because that time the economic growth rate was very stagnant and status quo. It was continuing that time. Status quo in the sense somewhere since 1950s till 1970s, 1950s to 1970s, the economic growth rate was stagnant, like 3.4, 3.5, 3.6, 3.2, 3. It was neither increasing nor decreasing. That economic growth rate during 1950 to 1970s, it was stagnant. There are many reasons, because that time everything was under government control. There were restrictions on industries, there were restrictions on imports, the Swadeshi movement, because that those days were early days of independence. So there were many arguments of Swadeshi, all these things, right? Once you argue that Swadeshi movement, that means you don't buy any material from the outside. If you don't buy any material from the outside, then there will be no imports, then there will be no economic growth. And who argued that time the Swadeshi movement? Who argued? Are the secular people? Are they were the secular people who carried out the Swadeshi movement that time? Right? Nationalist people only, now the people they may be in any form now. They may be in the form of BJP members or maybe in the RSS members, whoever it may be. They only talked about Swadeshi movement that time. When you talked about Swadeshi movement from 1950 to 1970s, you restricted imports, you restricted industrialization, you restricted technology import. Then obviously we have to depend on our local made products and local made economy. Then the growth rate was very minimal, like 3.2, 3.4, 3.3. That was the economic growth rate during 1950 to 1970s. So referring to that, Raj Krishna, one of the economists, he said this economic growth rate was very stagnant like Hinduism. Maybe the economist's view might be that, because there was no clarity, but he used that word. Now some of the economists, what they said, his view was that like our Hindu culture will be very stagnant, like our forefathers follow some tradition and custom and value, and then their children will carry, and then other children will carry, and then other people will follow. So the culture will be stagnant, and what do you say, status quo kind of situation will be there. Religious traditions of Hinduism. So because since it was stagnant and the economic growth rate was stagnant, so he referred that it is Hindu growth rate. He means to say that this economic growth rate is looking like Hindu culture. Means to say that stagnant culture, stagnant economic growth rate. That was true, that was stagnant economic growth, because it was around 3.5 in plus or minus 1, very stagnant. He did not blame the religion, he did not blame Hinduism. He said, he referred the character of Hinduism was status quo and continuously Sanatan Dharma, you people are talking about, right? Sanatan Dharma will be stagnant, and so same way like this is stagnant, he wants to refer that. But now Honorable Prime Minister twisted or turned, he used that word as if that economist, he abused Hindus were the reason for the slowdown of the economic growth rate. So now Honorable Prime Minister twisted that word as if that those economists blamed Hindus are the reason for the slowdown of the economy in India. So that was actually he spoke. So that was asked by one of the journalists to what you say, Jairam Ramesh said that he is illiterate, what can I talk? That was the controversy. It became another controversy. So these two words are being circulated in social media. That's what I understand after understanding the situation. Thank you. Namaskar.